Welcome everybody to this year's AutoCAD What's New presentation. I am a solutions engineer here at Hagerman, and maybe some of you have recognized me from cases or from other interactions such as training or consulting. There's a number of you that I've seen on the list there, so thank you for taking the time to join today's session. And so without further ado, we'll just go ahead and get started. Before we get too far in here, we're going to go ahead and do an agenda as to what we're going to be covering. Obviously, we got the introduction, and we're going to get in talking about AutoCAD 2027, and then we're going to be doing some demonstration before having closing slides and some Q&A. Let's go ahead and get started with the introduction to some of the improvements. So here are some of the improvements made to AutoCAD. Some are stemming between powerful AI tools to help with collaboration or even reinforcing standards. AutoCAD isn't just a drafting tool, but a partner. It's your partner to help you document your designs and to convey your design's intentions. And the whole thing about the AI part of this is that we're introducing intelligence to that. So here are some of the, whoops, I advanced my slide by mistake, apologize. Here are some of the items that we see here. So starting with like geometry cleanup, which is really more intelligence added into this where it has AI. I believe we have somebody unmuted from here. I can hear some noise. But it uses AI to help detect like issues within your drawing, whether it's gaps, whether it's, line geometry that's not quite exactly lined up to other geometry, or, it kind of goes through, a process of reviewing that. And a lot of times, you spend your time finding these things later on when somebody else notices usually. And it usually is time consuming. And of course, that equates to money lost on a project because you have to go back and try and fix all the catches and the gotchas, right? Then we have the Autodesk Assistant, which is the new AI. It's kind of like the AI built right into AutoCAD to help you with those simple conversational type prompts with, perhaps you're looking for some certain geometry or certain, entities within your drawings. And we're going to be covering that today. And then there's the form of data management, which is a cloud-based project management or file management. And it also offers a couple other things like the checkout, connected references, and then you can see project, the project support files as well, like project templates, tool palettes, and partial customization. A lot of times, when we're thinking about projects, I want you to think about, or when we talk about it, I want you to think about, what it takes to actually, set a project up. What dictates a project usually in terms of, what paper size is going to be. Well, that's a collection between, maybe it's the architect, maybe it's the MEP, maybe, somewhere along the line, a decision is made as to what size paper. Well, those template papers or those templates that you want to set up for that, it'd be nice to kind of set this up for this project. And so that's where this kind of comes into place. So the checkout functionality is a new feature. It kind of adds on to the capability that was introduced in previous versions. So it allows for the markup, but this really with the checkout is basically a checkout functionality of geometry. Now, the term checkout, maybe some of you using Autodesk Vault, or you might make a connection and say, hey, isn't that with Vault? No. This is specifically checking out certain geometries inside of AutoCAD. For others, maybe some of you have worked with Revit and you are familiar with work sets and how you can kind of check out individual work sets that could be set up per floor or set up based on geometry, discipline and things like that. That's the concept with this checkout. It's really checking out geometry within the drawing. And the purpose of this is not to for you to go ahead and make modification to a document. You are making sort of a markup that you can send off to a person who actually is going to be editing the file. So you have that one person that might be in charge of and responsible for maintaining this document, and all the others can just be a part of the collaboration. and basically submit these changes. And the communication is also pushed throughout everybody, so everybody will get the notification as to when a submission is actually set up. So again, it just allows for the documentation of the changes that you would want on a design. The connected reference is something that is really a nice tool, but it's something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time to come out with. And it all deals with, if you think about references, external references. How many times have you worked with external references inside of a project, and maybe a new person that jumps in onto the project and said, I don't like this folder structure, and they make a change to it. And the next thing you know, you go back and you check out the file, or you open it up, not check it out, but you open up the file, and all of a sudden, you're getting this prompt that says, hey, I can't find an external reference. And you're kind of like, oh, well, I know where that is. And you go hunting for it. The folder's missing. Where is it? What happened? And so this connected reference is actually addressing that through the form of data management. So it allows us to maintain the folder structure. So if a change does happen, it updates AutoCAD and you'll get the notification. So we'll be putting that to use today. And then we have lastly the actual support of the custom or these files. So you got project templates that you want to put up in there. You can load it up right into the form of data management. You can load tool palette settings. So sometimes with tool palette, maybe some of you are not familiar with tool palette, but tool palette is a palette that allows you to bring in blocks, and those can be set up to like libraries. And maybe when you think about maybe you've never used it this way, but if you think about project wide, what would you have as a tool palette? Maybe your title block, maybe your general note, maybe your the stamps that you put on that, whether it's an not for construction stamp or released or what have you. All of that can be put into a tool palette, and then you can actually have that associated to your form of data management projects. So it's kind of nice to have everybody on the same page and not have they have to copy and source it from another drawing to bring in those stamps or even templates or anything. It's all centralized in this one location. And then there's things like the partial customization, user interfaces, the changes to the CUI file. Some of it is also supported in there where it makes changes to the interface of AutoCAD. So whether you're a small or large, or even a globally large entity, company, the AutoCAD 27 has been delivered based on functionality that would improve your interaction with your drawing, be able to find things really quick. And it's just all about efficiency. It's about, getting better. And, if you think of, I like to think of it as AutoCAD being a partner in this. It's a partner with you to help with the documentations of your designs. So with that, as I mentioned, as AutoCAD, Autodesk has been evolving their products, right? They're dedicated to the evolution of their products, and 2027 is no different. They've now added that, a little bit more to the AI side of things. And the purpose is not to really replace us as users of AutoCAD. No, it's really about giving us tools that may help our day-to-day routines a little bit easier. So it's about redefining how we create our drawing. It's about truly setting up collaboration within your experience. It's about optimizing your productivity. And that's a big key with optimizing your productivity. So one of the things that they introduced as AI and a few versions back was smart blocks. The ability for AutoCAD to just look at your drawing and say, these entities are repeated throughout the drawing 63 times. You may want to turn these into a block, and it allows you to do that. Then they introduced the Markup Assist, which is sort of the predecessor of the checkout functionality. It's actually the checkout was actually added to that functionality. So where you can just create your markups and then submit them. Okay. Now, this year the enhancement is really around just adding something called the Autodesk Assistant. And of course, introduction of the form of data management as a solution to help manage these files. Now, the Autodesk Assistant isn't really just AI, right? It's about partnering with you. It's about delivering the intelligence that you would need or expect, from AI to help you with your designs, or in the context of, maybe I need to find queries. I need to find where there's inconsistency with my drawing standard. I need to be able to, pull a number of doors or windows, or maybe I need to help with writing a script, something to that effect. Autodesk Assistant was designed to help provide us the solution. I was playing around with it with a colleague the other day, and we just as a joke just said, well, hey, let's ask Autodesk Assistants to give us a rundown of, what's the difference between lines and polyline. Sure enough, within a few seconds, it came back with, the explanation for it. But not only that, it actually gave us like links to the actual source where it got its information. And then we just went on and said, well, hey, I'm using AutoCAD, but, somebody mentioned about BIM. Is AutoCAD BIM? And it came back and said, no, let me introduce you to Revit. And it gave us a whole list of helpful insights, as well as a few links and videos that we can go and tap into and learn about Revit. So it's really, it's really cool that they brought in that AI capability, not only, to help with the AutoCAD, but it's also where it helps with, just, simple things that you might want to learn about other offerings of products in Autodesk's arsenal or something like that. So it's really cool. So why do we, have all these enhancements, right? Why do we have like the AI? Why do we have the form of data management? Well, things get complicated these days, projects. I mean, look at this project. This is really an interesting shape here. And, that level, the level of, contour line, or not contour, but, the actual ergonomical shape you see of that building. A big thing that's been happening over the past several years, right, is the study of, the buildings themselves. Are they efficient? The sun going to heat up one side and cause it to be too hot for air handlers to be used, or things like that? All these little, analysis that are, that's been slowly evolving. And so today, with 2027, the complexity of our project, usually based on project demand, people are working from around the world. You're connected with people that are distributed around the world. And so the form of data management allows for us to come together. Never mind the big blue sea that's between us, or never mind the miles of highway that sits between us, but allows us to be able to be in the same platform, to be able to discuss, collaborate, and work together as a team. Now, the other thing that I like about that collaboration is that it becomes the source for your project file. It's there. Everybody has access to it. Speaking of access to it, you can actually set up permissions within Forma Data to allow maybe certain people to have access to a certain directory. What if you publish your sheets as PDFs or GIF files or anything like that, and you set up a certain directory and allow certain people read-only access to those directories? So maybe those are the final copies of release documentations and stuff like that. So permissions within this data management is achievable. The collaboration, for the entire project. The support files, the templates, getting everybody on board with the same template. I remember when I was actually doing this, we had to always put together a template and then send it out to everybody. And sometimes we get back the stuff and we're like, wait, you don't have the correct template. What happened to it? Oh, we have the previous template, or the old template that was had the old logo or something like that. With the form of data management, I can just update it in one place. And it's not a matter of, hey, do I have to download everything? No. It works right through the Autodesk connector. And what I like about that is that it does it automatically. So AutoCAD will be, already set and configured to connect to these support files. And the moment that you've already, you've synced that information, AutoCAD's got it. It's there. There's no more you have to, you have to download it from a source or go to one source file that might be a Microsoft Cloud solution or somewhere else, and then download everything, emails or anything like that. Share, you will have direct access to it here. So the Forma Data Management is a really cool platform, and they really have brought in some nice features, nice ability, and then enhanced it. So the checkout functionality that I was mentioning earlier with markups and everything, that is part, working with this, because when we have the collaboration, that's the whole part of this, right? That collaboration, the checkout functionality allows for multiple people to check out a proportion of a drawing, make their marks, and then submit it. And that submission could be, project-wide. And so people can accept it, can merge it. Again, it all ties down to that permissions too. So you can have certain people that have permissions to read write to a CAD file, where others can do the markups only and submit that, and then you, as the author of that drawing, can choose to accept or not. And when you hit accept, or it's actually merge, it's the terminology inside of AutoCAD, it automatically updates the Forma Data Management, and people will be, they'll get notified that, it's been up to date. So definitely something that's really nice with the ability. And the best part is, it comes with your standard AutoCAD, your single subscription of AutoCAD. So it's not an extra functionality that you have to pay for. It comes standard with your AutoCAD, single users subscriptions. You get access to this. So who wants to see it? I do. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into Forma Data here, data management. And for some of you, you might look at this and say, Dan, that looks very familiar. And I want to say, yes, it does. This is built right on top of the good old ACC Autodesk .com website. So it's from the docs, right? But it has additional features. And so one of the things you will notice is that if you're already in this environment, you will probably notice that when you go and create a new project, okay, you're going to notice that there's an option for data management. And so this is a list of all the projects here. And you can see it's got the access to my data management. I can set up from here, I can set up who's the project members are, who's the admins and things like that. And then if I go into the project itself, this is where I can specify, as an admin, I can go and specify who has access to a certain folder. I can have, these folders are populated, to help with, if I take a look at this and go inside here, you see there's my template. In my template, there is my tiny house TH template. And if I go up to my support, then we got things like fonts, you got patch pattern, plotters, tool palettes, and there's the good old CUI file that's posted right up there. So what's really nice is that we can put all this up here and onto the cloud. Now, before I go too far about this, away from this support, I did want to talk about, there are some people that have AutoCAD that is basically tailored to their organization. And the last thing you want is some other project to come in here and mess things up, right? It works slightly different. It uses something called Project Aware, which was introduced a while back, but Project Aware basically is an addition to it, to what you have. So let me show you what I mean. So here is my tiny house, and before I open that, I want to show you how we actually get to your from AutoCAD, how we can get to that. So I'm going to just go ahead and say close to that. When you're in your Start Welcome screen, you have all of these files that you recently accessed. There is an Autodesk project. This is where you're going to find all of your files from the project, the Forma Data Management. And so you can see here's my What's New webinar. Here's my drawing, and there's my tiny house. I also have my standards in here, and my standards will have my template, my support files. I have PDFs here. So there's some PDFs inside here of this. So if I go back into my drawing, and this right here is actually all synchronized by the desktop connector app. So all of this is it's local. So it's not like I'm tied in directly to the form of data management to get to this, but I can, if I lose internet connection, I can still have access to the files based on what I last, synchronized with. So I still have that. Now that I'm open with this, you'll see there is my file that I basically uploaded into the data format. Let me show you with the tool palette what I mean about, it's an addition to your current setting. So tool palettes is where you have a collection of these little tabs here. And these little tabs are basically, they're add-in from AutoCAD. They come standard. You might see things like, let's go into mechanical tab. There's mechanical stuff like bolts and anchor bolts. If we go into the architectural, if I can find the architectural, actually, I do not see my architectural tab. Okay, but you can see there's other models. There's other things that we can bring in. So I am missing my architectural tab, but I would have included windows, doors, and things like that. So, but if we take a look at my other drawing here, this bank A, this is actually a separate. Take a look at this. I have right up here, it says current project. This is tied into my project aware or the form of data management. If I click on it, it says, hey, you need to, upload it. This file isn't tied into the form of data. This is just a local file that I have. So here's all the standard stuff. So that's what I meant by, in addition to what you have locally or as your configuration, the project aware brings in this, and you can see this little blue icon just kind of showing you this little line here. This is actually a project-based one. And only a project that is tied into data forma, and in particular, if they were tied into this the webinar project that I created, will they have access to this? So if I uploaded the bank A to a separate project, they won't see this one. Only if I have this tied into that new project. So that's your file management aspect. Is where we can actually manage it, the certain access to certain information, certain templates and things like that. If I do Control N for a new template, it goes right into my TH template tier. With that, again, it's local, but it's tied into my project. Here's the Hagerman hub here. There's my project, which is the webinar, the AutoCAD 2027. And then you can see where it browses into the individual folders here, project file, standard, and then templates. So the desktop connector will go ahead and synchronize with the Forma data management, bringing in all of those folders and files and things like that. Now, if I go back to my Banks project here, which is not tied into Forma, you can see that right now. If I go and do Control N, it brings me back to my templates that were based out of, the AutoCAD configuration. So I can still have a hybrid, setup, which is what I would expect out of this, because, not all projects will be tied into the Forma data management, right? So you may have some local project, you may have some things that are that you are not going to be obviously taking advantage of that, but you can still maintain that kind of functionality inside of AutoCAD. Now, some of the tools that they've introduced, and I'm going to I know I'm kind of all over the place. I just went over the data, the data management aspects and stuff like that. But what I want to do is get into a little bit of the intelligence side of things inside of AutoCAD. And so whether you are tied into a Forma data management project or not, you have access to this tool. And so this tool that I'm going to show you is found under the Views tab. And you'll see the right here, there should be a markup panel. And then right here, you see it's got geometry cleanup. So if I click on this bad boy right here, it comes up with this. And what it allows me to do is to go and select object. Well, I'm just going to do the good old Control A to select everything. And then before I, before you start, like when you start the first time, you're going to get a configuration that asks you, okay, what is the gap sizes? What is the overshoot? So all of these are things that it detects. So starting with this top one right here where it's a gap, it's looking for geometry where there's an actual gap between line. So you ever have a drawing where you go and put a dimension on and it's not a clean dimension? Instead, you get like 93 feet and 3/32 of an inch. You kind of double look at that and you're like, wait, what? We've never measured that. What's going on? and you start zooming in, trying to figure out what's going on, and you find that maybe in the corner, the line was actually separated by 3/32, and it's not, it's not complete, or now we have an error in the drawing because that right line is moved over, and now you got to go back and fix it. So what this does, it allows us to go and locate those changes or those issues. So if I go ahead and say scan now, it will come back with all of the things that it's found, and maybe some of the things are not important, and maybe others are. So you can see there's 3 detected gaps. You're kind of like, I'm going to look around here, and I just don't see those gaps. And yeah, if I click on this, it goes and highlights it and say, yeah, there's a gap right here. Well, what about this one right over here? There's another gap right here, and you can see that the line here is actually separated. You zoom out, and you were like, oh wait, that's a window line that's kind of separated. You come over here, it's connected here. How many times have you run into something like that? And you know what? Oftentimes, it looks straight to you, right? You're like, well, Dan, I used the ortho mode to make this straight, so it should have been perfect. Well, yeah, but maybe this wall on the right side isn't actually linearly aligned. So we still have this gap here. So it allows us to identify these. Here's an interesting one. Notice how we got these absolute 0 and then an absolute 90. I looked at this and I'm like, wait a minute. I know that I use ortho the whole time. So I'm going to go take a look at this and see what this one is, this absolute 90. I look at this and I'm like, When I looked at this the first time, I'm like, I was like, you're crazy. That's perfectly straight, right? Well, then I did this. I went to the home, and I drew a line, and I drew it straight up, and lo and behold, there's where it was saying, hey, buddy, that line right there is not absolutely 90 degrees straight up. So how many times have you run into little things like that? These little things make detailing very interesting, and when it usually, when it happens, when you discover these mistakes, it's usually in the worst time ever. Like, oh, I'm sending this drawing out this afternoon. Now I got to go make sure that all of this is corrected, right? So that's one of the things that I like about AI, is that it kind of puts, AutoCAD to, it puts that intelligence to work to help you, to partner with you and find anything. So many times, we're working on this, and it's so easy with this information. Our brains are like sponges. It gets oversaturated when you look at this at 3 or 4 hours, and you start to let things slip. You start to not see the standard. When I first opened this up, I would have probably picked up the fact that these lines right here are not in the same furniture layout, layers or anything like that. And perhaps I would have picked out that, oh wait, these guys they're not the actual block. They're here. So Autodesk introduced a tool earlier on that is part of that intelligence that allows us to do this block detection. That's the AI. That's an example of how AI comes to help with that. So if I were to come in here and I select this and I go look for to use the block detection tool, it's found like here under the insert, and there's the detect and convert. And since I've already have this selected, I'm going to use the option of search and convert. The search and convert means that I've already selected. You see that little green box? It indicates that I've already selected it. I already selected it, and guess what? It's found all of these things. And really, those should be converted into the same block that I've already used before. And so I have the ability to use an existing block. There's the block that I want. Or I can just create a new block and go through and get a new name. Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to use an existing block. I already have it. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and convert that. And then I'm going to, choose to redefine it just to make sure everything looks good. I have all the line geometry selected. And I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. And now you can see all of these are set to the block. And more importantly, I can now, because they're all selected, I can go ahead and put them on the correct furniture layer and not have to, think twice of it. That's the nice thing about the AI, is that it partners with you and things like the mundane things that you might, think of later on. Oh, that could be a block, right? Or, maybe you missed that. Finding those little discrepancies into the drawing. Now, what I like to also introduce you, I'm going to go ahead and close the tool palette. I'd like to introduce you to the AI right here. This is the Autodesk Assistant. Okay. To bring this up, there's this three like diagonal lines right here. If you click on this, it brings this up. This is your Autodesk interface, and this is where you can type in, have a conversational prompt to look for things. For example, how many bar stools, notice I misspelled it, right, are in this drawing? That, just to give you an idea of what I'm doing, is bar stool 1 is actually a block. And so it's going to do a query in there and go and tell me how many blocks are in here that follow that name. So it's executing. And if I go down here, it comes back and it says, did I misspell it? It says there are none here. So let me try this as another conversational piece. How many bar stools are there in this drawing? So I can go back and run the query once again, and it's going to look for block references that may have that name or something like that. And I'm just go ahead and scroll down here. You see it's executing, and check this out. It has found what I was looking for, bar stool, but I had put the number 1, not 2, which is why it couldn't find it. You see that? So that was a goof on my end, but now I have the numbers here. And it tells me that there are 7 instances of this stool, and there's another one here. And so you look at this, you can see that I have one right here. Here's the other one. You can see it has that back board here, and that one is the bar stool 2, and this here is the just the stool. So even though I took the word bar stool and put that in the prompt, it knew, hey, he must be looking for the stool. So it came back with all of that. Now, here's something that I really, really, really like about this, is that you can take the intelligence part of this and say, hey, what items, highlight items that are not in, the by layer. And I'm going to do this on purpose to kind of show you, because we all run into this before, right? So imagine you're in you got all this, and what's the purpose of layer? To maintain integrity to our drawing. But then somebody comes over here and does an override, right? They override it to something else, right? Well, to you may not know that. You may not know that. You may not pick up on that. Well, that's where this comes in. Are there, and this is the whole thing about searching for, things that just violates our standards, that are not in our standard. Are there any items that are not following layer colors? So it's going to go through and try and look at all the objects, and it will let us know if it actually has found any. And let's see, as it still processes. I kind of feel like this is like the old movie of Willy Wonka, where the two guys are typing in, can you help me find the golden ticket? That's kind of like what I feel like doing right now. So as it's going through and calculating all this, and it eventually comes back, and you can see that it tells me that, there's all these block references that are, you notice it's on color index, and it has it. Wait, there's 4 of these. It's found them. It's basically telling me there are 4 of these stool 1 that are on a color index of 32. So now with that, you can see it's telling us there's this, but then there's also a hatch. There's another hatch that's got a different color. So it allows us to go and find these entities and to bring to our attention of that. And then, of course, that funny question that I did earlier where I said, hey, what's the difference between a line versus P-line? Now, we all know what that does, right? But, just to have a little bit of humor here, it'll go through and it'll look for it, and notice it's looking for the specific. Well, I type P-line and it says, well, that's a polyline. It knew that right there, right? So here's the differences. Then it goes through and it gives you all links to this. So I really like this Autodesk Assistant. One of my other colleagues was at first kind of like, I don't know about this, to, well, at the end of our conversation, we're like, that's pretty nice to be able to just have sort of a conversation to this. I'm just glad I don't have to use like the Copilot anymore, because that Copilot functionality it is nice, but there's no link directly into AutoCAD. So if I wanted to, ask for certain information, well, Copilot's a complete different, thing. How many of you use ChatGPT? That's another thing. I need to write a list routine for a rectangle. Just plug that right into here, and it will come back and walk you through the steps. Now, what's really cool about some of these is that, these prompts here, you can actually elect to keep them, and you can save them, and now they're here. So here's the one that I did for a door and window query here. So I click on this, and I'm going to tell it to go ahead and execute. So it's going to basically search for, in the drawing, let me bring that back up. Notice what I have. Can you tell me how many windows and doors are in this drawing? And it will go through and execute this. And now you can see it did windows and doors. Let's see. There you go. Now, when you look at this and you say, are there really 29 doors in this? It's a possibility. I mean, look at all the doors here. But then you look at that and you say, still, I don't know if there's 29 doors in here, right? Well, it's possible that there's some doors that are overlapping each other. There might be a duplicate over it. And everybody probably is familiar with the old command called overkill, where it goes and gets rid of that. So you may have to execute that. So you have to take what you get here with a little, a little bit of, a sense of, is it really finding 29 doors, or are there other things that it's detecting? Now, the windows, it was a little bit more accurate. But when I look at this, I'm going to say there's 7 windows. You see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5, 6, and 7. You might say, well, Dan, these guys right here are not really windows, are they? Because wouldn't they be like a curtain wall that's an internal? Yeah, but you know what I did? I did the lazy way, and I just grabbed the window block. So this actually located these items based on, a block name, pretty much, right? One of these aren't, being detected. And that is this guy right here. You see, this is the one that was manually drawn. And you can see that's the one that got a little gap. So, on purpose, I actually exploded this for the purpose of that little gap to kind of show that. And so this guy here isn't a window. It's made up of line. So what I can do, if you notice, is that the lines themselves are actually on a Windows layer. I could extend this conversation and say, can you find me any lines that are on the layer called Windows? And it would come back and give us the result. So if it was just these, these 4 lines here, it would have it highlighted and selected. I can come in here and, change them, update them, turn them into a block, and what have you. So that is the intelligent piece about, or the AI, if you will, about adding all this into, AutoCAD, the assistance here. So I really like that aspect. Now, I'm going to come back into my tiny house here, and what I want to do is kind of show you a little bit more about the data management side of things. So we were just talking about, AI, and before that we were talking about how you can access the actual the website, which is the acc.autodesk.com, and you get to your project. But I didn't really talk about, the markups. Okay, so this is a different type of intelligence that we're adding here. This is intelligence that we are making as collaboration, or making markups and things like that. So I've already got a markup notification, and it was basically on this guy right here. Okay, and so if I go into my collaborate tab here, you'll notice there's this traces here, and you'll notice that we have trace palettes. The markup import, these were introduced a couple versions back, maybe last year or something like that, maybe a year before, I forget exactly. But then we have this checkout. So let me just bring up the trace palette just to kind of show you that I gotta log in. Oh, yeah, we are not immune from this, unfortunately, but I'm going to continue on and ignore that. But take a look at this. There's my markup that was done on Wednesday. If I click on it, it will highlight for me that section. And notice what it's showing me. It's showing me extra geometry that was added here. Now, in this view, I have the ability to hit the merge to accept those, or if I just cancel it, it'll keep it. Take a look here. See the difference here? See how there? Somebody noticed that my roof doesn't go all the way up to here in this view. They also noticed that there's this little sort of patio, if you will, right here, that's not even documented in here. So somebody came up with this markup, and here it is. Well, that was me. So why did I create a markup for myself, right? Well, I was also notifying my colleague, Alice, who's also in this room, and she also made a markup for me as well. So you can see these are historical this month of these updates that we've gotten on this particular drawing. So it's a conversation piece, but it also allows us to let others know the changes that we did. I'm going to go ahead and merge this now. And then you can see that it incorporates the checkout modifications to a drawing. And I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Now, I haven't shown how we get those markups. How do we actually get to the point of the checkouts? So right up here, this new button that was added. If you click on this, it's going to ask you to select the entity that you want to check out. I'm going to go ahead and check out this tree right here. I noticed that it's too big, and you can see on this elevation that it should be about the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and check that out, and that's the only thing I'm going to do. So I'll press enter to accept the selection, and then right next to my mouse and in the command line, you'll notice that are you ready to create this checkout too? Absolutely. So now we're checking out the geometry, and what you're going to see is that everything else go in this kind of faded view except for this guy right here. And now I can draw lines, draw rectangles, draw circles, add to this as a markup, and more importantly, come over here and make a change to this. So if I take this and I say I'm going to scale this just a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, I'm just going to eyeball it. Yeah, we never eyeball things in AutoCAD, right? We just always just, put in the dimensions and stuff like that. But you know what? It's effective, and I got, just what I want. And I'm going to go ahead and make a annotation, and in the annotation, I'm going to do a free-handed markup, and I believe I'm going to just use my dimensions layer. Typically, you would create a revision or something like that. I don't think I see that in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and just use this red, colored for the dimensions. And I'll just draw my freehand bubble. Now that's pretty big. I should have adjusted the size, but that's okay. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm not going to merge it because I don't want to merge it into my drawing. What I want to do is save the checkout. And so by hitting that X, it closes it out, and now it's in my collaboration tab, trace palette. There's the new one. And now anybody that's part of this project would get the notification. They would see this. And of course, you click on it. And now we see the revision table or the revision bubble and the changes. And then I can go and hit merge as needed. Okay. All right. So go ahead and close out of that. This guy right here is an external reference. This item was attached after I created my project, and I put that up onto the form of data management. But then I created this external reference or added it, which is basically the overall site plan, and I simply saved this drawing. The moment that I saved this drawing in my project, it created a folder called some folder name, and in there was my tiny house property DBG. This is the external reference. And so what I'm going to do is show you that I'm going to go and rename this. And instead of calling it some folder name, I'm going to actually call it external reference. External references, because, you know, what does some folder name mean, right? See, it's been updated, okay? And this is where, you know, a lot of times when somebody were to close AutoCAD or close, you know, the drawing, it becomes a problem. Because as soon as you open it up, what happens? You get this dialog that says, hey, can't find this file. Well, I'm going to go back to here, go right in here. You might use these refresh to make sure everything is all set. Now, look at this. It updated the folder name. All right, so the moment of truth, and you guys see it right here as well. Moment of the truth. I'm going to go ahead and open this. I should get a pop-up right here, and it says, hey, one or more reference files could not be located. Oh, Dan, you said it solves it, right? Wait a minute, I'm not done yet, because it says open up external reference palette, okay? So I open that up, and look what it did. It's telling us, hey, this guy right here is now in a folder called external reference. Before, it was actually in some folder name. So look at this button right here, resolve. So right inside of my external reference palette, I have this functionality working with me to fix any problems I have with external reference path, as long as that they were in the format data management. Over here, you can see that I can actually go and manually select a path. So if I couldn't find it, or, you know, for whatever reason, you know, usually it takes a few minutes for this to update, or a few seconds, I should say. When I did the refresh from the start screen, it updated everything for me. So now I just open up the drawing. So I like to say that the better way of handling things like that is to go open up the file from the start menu, hit the refresh at that top right corner, which is right here. Hit that refresh, make sure you got refreshed. And then when you go back into and you open up the file, you should get this notification, and then it's telling you right here that it needs to be fixed. Go ahead and hit resolve. And now it says there are no missing references at this time. And then switch over to all reference so I can see all my references. So now you can see that this is already fixed. So, you know, that's one of the common things I've seen over the years. And even when I was actually on the other end of this call here, where I'm actually a user, that was one of the common things I ran into. You know, folder being renamed, folders being relocated, files being moved around, files being renamed. And, you know, if you didn't know about those things, it makes it interesting, because now you have a file where the external reference has an X and it just can't find it. And now you're on the hunt to find out what happened to this. And so when you finally give up and you're like, I can't find this, what do? You either go and download the new, you know, the whatever you had before and put it into play and try to restructure it. Or you send out an email and say, hey, team, what did you do to this file, right? With the format data management, you won't have to worry about that. That's one thing off your shoulder. So that's the intelligent side that I'm talking about, where they included a little bit of, all right, now AutoCAD has a little bit of common sense when you're working with this data management. So if a folder structure changed, it updates that. Kind of the same kind of practice that you get with the Vault, you know, where you have a folder being renamed, Vault automatically updates it, right? Updates the reference. Well, now we have this functionality right inside of this format data management. So again, format data management comes as a with your standalone AutoCAD, so you will be able to have access to it, and you can utilize it. It's the essential. There's a couple. There's, I think, 2 flavors. Alice, you might have to correct me on that, but there's the essential level, which is the basic data management of your files. All right.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a couple of things that aren't included, but we can go over that if we have questions.
Okay. All righty. So I'm going to go ahead and start our slideshow from here. So that concludes our demonstration side of things, and I hope that that was a very insightful presentation on the demonstration of the products. And I want to open up this now for some questions, and just wanted to check.
Dan, I've been working on them. I have one here that says, could I prompt change all dimensions to a new dimension style? My understanding is it doesn't change anything. It just provides you information. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so at the time or at this time, it doesn't actually make changes. It is, and this is something else I should have brought up. It is under a tech review, sort of preview. So what that basically means is that the functionality itself, it's still under like initial reviews, and it still learns as it goes along based on the line of questions you have, learns about what you're looking for. So it doesn't allow for editing of files, but it will go through and pop up with prompts of how you can do it. So if you say, how do I draw a rectangle, or how do I or even if you just say draw a rectangle, it will flat out just say, I can't create it, but here's how you can do it, and it gives you a step-by-step guide on that. Okay. Just looking at the question.
Yeah, the last question was how many of these new features are in LT 2027? I looked up a couple of them. I didn't see any that weren't, but I didn't know if you might know specifically.
Yeah, I'm not sure that LT has the seat. They mentioned AutoCAD exclusively with the format data management. I'm not sure if the LT has that. It's not abundantly clear right away, but
Yeah.
they specifically said AutoCAD at the time, so I'm going to handle that as it might be more for AutoCAD and some of those functionalities. So, all right. Any other questions? Like Alice, you've been busy in the background.
Yes, I've had some good questions.
Yes, you do. I see one that says, oh, where is it? I thought I saw one that said something about can AI be used to configure a dim style? It won't configure or create it, but it will give you the steps on how you can do it. So it can certainly do that. New geometry checking feature as well, function as well. I'm not sure what you meant by that question. Can you elaborate on that question there? I think this was from Ed. Please say that the new geometry checking function as well. What did you mean by that? How is the assistant when it comes to identification, object selection, when it comes to COGO points? So I'm not sure what the term COGO is. Is that a civil term?
Yeah.
I know that they're bringing. There was something that they just announced. In fact, yesterday, I think they brought something out. I didn't incorporate that into here because I didn't have civil, but my assumption is that when it comes to identifying an object, blocks, if you have those unique name blocks, it's able to identify those objects that way. A lot of my prompts, if you notice, when I was going to do queries on the number of stools, they were specifically, it knew automatically to look for block. I didn't say it was a block name. I specifically just said, go find bar stool, and then went ahead and found it. So it basically uses the blocks to kind of help find those objects. But if you exclusively said, for example, I'm looking for all circles that are smaller than 6 inches in diameter, you could use that. Hi Dan, good to see you. Likewise, Jen. For external reference and data forma, does Vault 2027 have the ability to recognize the file? Yes, it does. Because the whole purpose of the Vault itself is to maintain relationships between files. So it does have that functionality in there when you go and rename it. Now, it's not renaming like in your local workspace, but it's when you're renaming it inside a Vault. Once it's in the Vault, and it knows that this external reference is now a child of a parent drawing. It knows the relationship between that. And so if you do a restructure or renaming, the next time AutoCAD opens up, it updates that for you. So yeah. Can it create a script for or ellipse? So Chris, I like your line of thinking there. It does have that ability. I can actually say, for example, I went and yesterday I typed in what was, and it took a little bit, but it did come back. I said, can you create a list routine for creating rectangles? And it took a little bit, but it came back with like 5 or 6 different methods. One with resizing the rectangle, one with placing multiple rectangles, and it actually had the scripts in there. So it does have that the ability to do so. Now this morning when I asked for it to do something similar, it misunderstood that as I needed a step-by-step of how to do a rect. So I had to be a little bit more exclusive as what I was looking for. But I eventually, it's kind of like, with any AI, right? Copilot does it. ChatGPT does it. You tell it to, all right, I need something blue. It will say, okay, blue, here you go. But then you say, oh, I need, a blue ribbon or something like that. And then it comes back and it will draw a ribbon. Well, I mean a roll of ribbon or, something like that. So the AI just builds upon your prompt. That's why it's being released as a conversation prompt that you can go in and can build upon those. So good question.
Hey Dan, I was just going to
Yes.
say that I did confirm that the data management is not in the LT version, the form of data management. And it looks like the AI tools are a little limited when it comes to object detection and things like that for the AI assistant in the LT version. So it's there, it's just limited.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense because of the fact that LT doesn't create blocks. It can host a block, but it doesn't create block. Doesn't author. Oh wait, well, actually, did they make that change a couple of years ago, Alice?
I'd have to go back. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, there were some changes they did with LT, but yeah, there you can tell that we don't have too many interaction with LT these days because ever since they brought out the AutoCAD with tool sets, well, everybody just hopped onto that and just LT just kind of fell back. So, will these new features be available on Plant 3D? So, I would imagine the assistant will be right. Data management side, they're right now only saying that it's supported with plain AutoCAD and Civil. They were introducing Civil. So I would probably have to say stay tuned for any update for the form of data management in terms of that support. For now, I'm going to say there's nothing out there that says that there is support for that. So, but the assistant, the detection, those are all AutoCAD based updates or features. So you should be able to get to those. You should be able to use those. Let's see. So I know we're getting over our time here. So I see the rest of the questions here, and I will definitely get to them and we'll answer them. So for the last one here, I see can AI Assistant look into entities within a selected area, or does it always have to apply to an entire drawing? That is a good question. I don't know if I can tell it things like with the item selected, can you tell me what layers the dimensions are on? I don't know. See, I have dimensions over here and over here. Let's see if it is able to. First, I need to check the items are currently selected in the drawing. Yeah, so apparently it is. So I noticed the drawing would change. Okay, it's noticing some other things. So this is where I say, you got a little bit of this. You're kind of like, that's cool. All right. There are 8 dimensions that are all rotated dimensions. All dimensions are on the dimensions layer. They're red. Okay, so it looks like you can look at the, you could go and do a selection because it did say up here at the top, I'll first need to see if the item, see what items are currently selected. So.
I'm trying to catch up.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I believe for what we'll do is we'll have to collect the rest of the questions here, and we'll definitely. Does it maintain conversation history? Right here, or the chat history. But it's it's per this instant for today, not like everything. So if there was something that you want to save, always take it and save it. And so these will stay as sort of your quote unquote archived, if you will. But yeah, it will. There is a history section. So alrighty, so I will go ahead and turn the floor over. Let me go ahead and get my final slides up here. So bear with me here. So we want to turn the floor over to Ashley in a minute. So what's next? So I do want to share with a couple of things that we can do to help some of you. So we do offer some new user training. I noticed the one day is wrong. Yeah, those are 3 days for a new user training, but advanced 2-day training course we offer, as well as custom, training on specific niche areas. So let's say that some of you are interested in what we saw today and you wanted to have additional training or anything like that with the technology today. That is something that we can put together as a project, and we can go over, like a training. There's information right here with on our website on additional training. You can certainly go and review that. There's also on YouTube, and we have our own YouTube channel, and I believe that some of our webinar might end up on there. Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong. And with that, I thank you for your time today in attending to the AutoCAD 2027 What's New, and I hope that it was a informative session for you, and that you had a great time, and have a great rest of your day. And I'll switch it over to